What's going on, everyone? So we all know about the Indiana Pacers trade. It's a trade that the Lakers almost pulled off right before media day. It's a trade that many people want to see get done, right? Many people feel Buddy Hield, Myles Turner are the pieces we need to kind of take the Lakers over the top, right? The Lakers have a lot of dead weight, right? You got Damian Jones, JTA, Patrick Beverley, Kendrick Nunn. Russ has been fantastic. Many people, myself included, don't really want to see Russ be traded anymore unless it's for something that's just, too good of a deal that pretty much makes us one of, if not the best team in the league, right? You have to get true value for Russell Westbrook. And the problem is that any deal is very likely not going to be true value for Russell Westbrook, right? Like, you're losing the production and just what productivity Russ is putting out there as like the playmaker and things like that. Basically replace him with Buddy Hield and Myles Turner. And so you're kind of replacing one positive to add two new positives, but are they the biggest needs? Like, Buddy Hield would definitely help a lot, right? The three-point shooting. Myles Turner could help with that three-point shooting, but Anthony Davis has been such a monster at the center position. There's lots of questions with that. Like, how will that fit? Defensively, in the interior, you'd be great, but perimeter-wise, there's a lot of questions. Like, we already are not very good on the perimeter. This doesn't help, right? Like, who's guarding the perimeter? You're putting a ton of pressure now on LeBron James and Walker, right? So say you do this deal, your starting five is likely Walker, Buddy Hield, LeBron James, Anthony Davis, Myles Turner. Like, who's guarding the perimeter? That's a real question. But what if you could do this deal and kind of add some other pieces? Like, that's something else that we've talked about. But the issue is the Pacers would have to come down off their asking price. Right now, they want 2 first-round picks, and they haven't really budged on it. And though at some point, it's like, do you get something for Myles Turner, right? At what point do you just say, okay, we need to get something of value because Myles Turner is going to leave next season, and he's talked about it. But the problem with this deal also is this deal basically nets you no center, right? You have no replacement for Myles Turner, even on an offensive side or a size side, right? Like, just to have a big body in the interior. There's very few defensive centers like Myles Turner, right? Very few. But can you get somebody that is as equally productive? Would they want like a Damian Jones? Like, Damian Jones isn't going to help with that production. So that is probably, a net negative for the Indiana Pacers. But there is a team that is, based on reports, is considering trading 2 of their potential stars in the Chicago Bulls. Chicago is considering, if their record continues, of moving off of DeMar DeRozan and Nikola Vucevic, right? 2 guys. Now, Vu, he's a guy that they're probably giving up regardless. They're just going to let him walk. They've kind of refused, and based on reports that we've gotten from Chicago, they're not in the position to try to give him an extension. They're not really looking forward to that. Any conversations have sort of halted, and there's no real discussion about trying to extend the center, which I think is very interesting. But it does make sense. I mean, this team is really struggling. They're not very good. It's something that I've talked about even in preseason, even before the season began. I thought Chicago was a team that the Lakers should really look out for because they're a team that just isn't going to be very good. And I don't see them turning it around. And at some point, they're very likely going to want to hit the reset button, especially this year, because their draft pick this year is top 4 protected, and so is next year. So if they were ever going to tank and try to go for Victor, this would be the year to do so. And moving off DeMar DeRozan makes a lot of sense. Maybe they trade Zach LaVine, maybe they don't. Regardless, DeMar DeRozan with his age and stuff, doesn't make a lot of sense to keep him around. Vu, very likely going to let him go or lose him regardless, so might as well get something for him. He's kind of an add-on. And there have been talks and even reports that the Lakers have internally discussed a Chicago Bulls trade, going and getting these 2. But what if you could combine the Chicago Bulls trade with the Indiana Pacers trade, right? So again, Indiana's going to send out Myles Turner. They're going to need a replacement. And the Lakers don't really have a replacement to give them for Myles Turner. Are you going to give up Thomas Bryant? Like, no, if you're the Lakers, you want Thomas Bryant, right? You want to keep him. You want to unload a Damian Jones because he's doing nothing for you, right? So how do you get them to be incentivized. Well, what if you have Myles Turner going to the Lakers and then you have Vu going to the Pacers, right? And this would give the Pacers also that same flexibility, right? They could use him, test out the waters. If it works and they like the fit with him, then they're good. They can re-sign him. He probably is going to be cheaper than what Myles Turner will be. He's not the defender that he is, but they shoot nearly the identical 3-point percentage, so you're not losing the floor spacing with Vu. Vu is a better all-around offensive player as well as a better passer. So you might get some more versatility and some more flexibility. He also gives you a guy that you can have that may be able to help keep you competitive if you're the Indiana Pacers, right? Because Indiana is doing pretty good. They're like top 4 in the East right now. And so it's one of those things, like, do they want to continue that? Or do they want to start looking in another direction, start going tank mode? Well, if you get Vu, there you go. Now you're in a position. Or you could use him and maybe try to trade him and get even more assets, right? Go and get other pieces. So essentially, the way that this would all break down is you would have Russell Westbrook going to the Chicago Bulls along with Kendrick Nunn. And then you would have Vu as well as Patrick Beverley going to the Indiana Pacers. And that's how you would clear Buddy Hield and Myles Turner. Now, also, what the Lakers could do if they wanted, say, an Alex Caruso, right? Maybe you could work that out for Chicago. He's only making about $9 million. He's having a rough year. Maybe you could add some incentives to, maybe a couple second-round picks, something like that, to maybe get Caruso as well. And then all the Lakers would have to do is add a Damian Jones. Also, Damian Jones, you wouldn't need Damian Jones at that point. And if Chicago's tanking, they'll probably want to get off of the long-term salary of Alex Caruso, right? He's still got a couple years on his contract, or he can, a couple years on his contract. So this would give them that extra flexibility to unload Alex Caruso, and the Lakers can kind of get Alex Caruso. Maybe he can kind of reignite himself, given that he's playing next to LeBron James. So essentially, the Lakers would end up with Alex Caruso, DeMar DeRozan, Buddy Hield, and Myles Turner. Which, if you're doing either of these deals, you're very likely going all in regardless, right? You're pushing all your chips to the table. And at this point, you have so much talent, you should probably win a championship, right? I mean, you're talking these 4 guys with LeBron James and Anthony Davis. Like, if you can't win a championship with this, even with the concerns of the perimeter defense, if you can't win a championship with this, like, I don't know what to tell you, right? You got LeBron James, you got, DeMar DeRozan, Buddy Hield, Myles Turner, and Anthony Davis. Like, literally, that could be your starting 5 if you want, right? And you still would have Alex Caruso. You'd still have Dennis Schroeder. You'd still have, Thomas Bryant, Wenyen Gabriel, Troy Brown, Walker, like all these guys. Like, you are a very good deep team. And you basically turned Patrick Beverley, Kendrick Nunn, Russell Westbrook, and Damian Jones into these 4 guys. So again, you would have Russell Westbrook, Kendrick Nunn, Damian Jones going to Chicago. Chicago has Alex Caruso, DeMar DeRozan, and Nikola Vucevic going out. Vu goes to the Indiana Pacers. Caruso and DeRozan go to the Lakers. Then you would have Buddy Hield and Myles Turner going to the Lakers. And then to Indiana would be Patrick Beverley, Vu, and then you'd have to work out the draft picks. Now, the only way you could do this is if each team would be willing to take a first, and like you probably have to give up like all your seconds and some pick swaps and stuff like that, right? So basically all of your draft capital would very likely have to go out. Now, I could see Chicago doing it for one first, because one, how many teams are going to go after DeMar DeRozan? One, how many teams have salaries to match to go and trade for DeMar DeRozan? that actually makes sense for the Chicago Bulls, right? Because Chicago doesn't want to take like if you're Chicago, you're not calling up Miami and trying to take on Kyle Lowry and Duncan Robinson. Like, that makes no sense for you. You're tanking. You don't want that long-term salary for the next 4 years. Like, no, it's silly. It makes no sense. So how many teams actually have the salary to go and make a trade for DeMar DeRozan, believe that he's a missing piece, and are willing to give up draft capital? There's probably not many teams, if at all. And then Alex Caruso, he's having such a rough year. I don't know how many teams would actually give up value for him. Vu is basically, he's the odd man out. Everyone knows that they're going to let him go. Same reason teams aren't trying to trade for Myles Turner. Why would I trade for Vu when he could just leave next season and I get nothing out of it? Now, if you're Indiana, you don't care. Like, if he stays, cool. Or if you want him to stay, cool, you can extend him. If you don't, then fine, just let him walk, right? Just say, I'm done. Here you go. Like, good luck to you. It's no big deal. But at least you got assets for it. It's Indiana that I think would be the problem and would be tough to convince them to only take one first, right? But you're giving them something for Myles Turner. Not only that, but you're giving them a center that they can use to continue to be competitive if they want to be competitive. And on top of that, you're taking on Buddy Hield's salary, which would clear money off of their books and help, the Pacers in that regard. So I do think that there is a benefit. So basically, instead of Indiana getting 2 firsts, you're getting Vu to kind of keep you competitive, and you're getting a first plus probably 2 seconds plus, maybe a pick swap. And then Chicago probably gets a first in like 2 seconds, something like that. So you probably have like 4 seconds going out, both your firsts going out, but you have this team for the next like 3 to 4 years. And this is a team that could win a championship for the next several years. Like, this is a deal that if you can't win with this, I don't know what to tell you. I mean, Myles Turner, Buddy Hield, Alex Caruso, and DeMar DeRozan by themselves are probably good enough to be at least a play-in team, right? Like, seriously, like a legit play-in team, right? And then add in LeBron James. That's probably a contender, or at least a really solid playoff team. And then add in dominant best player in the world, Anthony Davis. Like, if you can't win with that, I don't know what to tell you. And that is a move that you could go all in and would make sense, and you could justify, right? That is a justifiable move. I mean, you're getting basically 3 all-star level players, or at least 2 all-star level players. Although Buddy Hield is playing pretty decent for the most part. He's kind of cooled off a lot, but still, for the most part, he's been pretty solid this year. But you're getting at least 2 all-star level players, and then you're getting 2 very serviceable role players. So, like, the Lakers get their depth, they get size, they get everything. The concern still is perimeter defense, right? Like, you still don't have a ton of great perimeter defense, but Alex Caruso he's basically a bigger, younger Patrick Beverley, right? A guy that can play solid defense, guard multiple positions, got some decent size. He's not the wing player you want, but he's 6'5". So, I mean, he's got some size to him. Plus, he works really well with LeBron, and he was a real key factor in us winning a championship. He can come off the bench. You could start him. You could do whatever. I mean, you could have a starting 5 legitimately of, Walker, DeMar DeRozan. And DeMar DeRozan has actually picked up defensively over the last few years. He's not as good this year, but I think part of it is just Chicago's really bad. And it's like he's kind of the only constant and consistent, where I think if he went to a team like the Lakers, I think he would kind of pick back up defensively. And not just that, but I mean, Darvin Ham was able to turn Russ into a legit defender. I'm pretty sure he could turn DeMar DeRozan into like at least a serviceable defender. So then you could have, Walker, DeMar, LeBron, Davis, and then Myles Turner, and kind of work that out. Like, this is kind of like the perfect storm for the Lakers to kind of just go all in. Like, to me, this would be the ultimate go all in, live with the result type move. Maybe you can make an argument that this might be too much of a talent influx because, fit is a real thing. Fit and chemistry are real things. But if it works, you're probably a contender for the next 3 years. Like, you could probably realistically win multiple championships with this. I mean, people believe Buddy Hield and Myles Turner make you a contender. What do Buddy Hield, Myles Turner, and DeMar DeRozan make you? Like, the best team in the league? I don't think that Buddy Hield and Myles Turner makes you a contender. But you add in DeMar DeRozan, I think you got to make the argument. Like, I think you got to make the argument they're the best team in the league with this type of trade, with this type of deal. But anyway, as always, this is a discussion, so I pass the question on you. Love to hear your thoughts and opinions. Let me know down in the comment section below. Is this something that you would do? Something that you'd be game for? Something that you don't? Do you think it's too much? Do you think it's not enough? Do you think, again, it's just kind of an idea, a fun little experiment. I'm not saying it will happen. This is kind of like, an extreme, but it's not out of the realm of possibility. It's a realistic possibility that actually makes sense for all parties. Like, it does. It makes sense for the Pacers because they want to get something for Myles Turner. That was the whole reason they wanted to trade him to begin with. And now your argument is, instead of getting 2 firsts, we're giving you a first, 2 seconds, pick swap, whatever you want. Plus, we're giving you Vu so you can remain competitive, right? Like, that's the whole thing. And Vu also adds another element to the Pacers that they currently don't have. So, I think you could justify that. And then Chicago, they would be hitting the reset button trying to tank, right? So they'd be glad to just clear the salary. And I think it's a win-win for everybody. You basically turn 3 unproductive players in Russ into 4 productive players, right? And with this, I think you weather the storm. Because my problem, I don't want to trade Russ unless it's a move like this. If you could do something like this, you have to. Because even if it doesn't work, you can at least justify the move, right? But again, love to hear your thoughts and opinions. Let me know down in the comment section below.